What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Great to see you again here on Tuesday, July 21st, and we've got your DTI news here. Whatever I'm going to call these videos. Your sit rep, situation report of the day. And we're going to start off talking about some QAnon news. Now, I'm not going to cover Q's recent drops because I'm pretty sure you can read for yourself. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm wasting people's time when I'm reading things that you can obviously go do on your own. But also, those drops were a few days ago by now, and plenty of other people have put out their own videos of their own decodes of them doing just as good of a job, if not better than I could do. So don't need to waste your time on that today. Nevertheless, we do have some Q stories I do want to cover, some stuff that Shipp has been saying about Q this morning. Real intriguing things. And then also Dwight Howard. Yeah, the NBA Dwight Howard. The mainstream media is lighting him up for a few things. So we'll cover that and then go through a few other stories as well. That assassination attempt on the judge. Really crazy story. Looks like a professional job, quite honestly. We'll dig into that. News broke today of Ghislaine Maxwell paying an alternative media gentleman, I guess you could call him, by the name of Jacob Wohl. You ever heard of him before? Yeah, I have. Something always seemed off about that guy, and now we're getting details that something might definitely be off about that guy, so we'll cover that, and then a few other things too. So that's the agenda for this one, folks. Hope you'll enjoy it. Let's get started. Have you ever stopped to think about how personal information about you could be seen or exploited by people online? Most people don't think twice, but your data is constantly being mined to be used against you, and hackers anywhere could be waiting for a chance to get their hands on a password or your credit card number. Protect yourself today with Virtual Shield's VPN. A VPN, or virtual private network, masks your IP address online and encrypts your data, making it nearly impossible for anybody to look at what you're sending. It's incredibly easy to use. All you do is connect through your app on your computer, phone, tablet, and it costs only dollars per month. Check the description below to learn more about Virtual Shield's VPN. So to begin, we're starting off with a story that's not even on the board because it's a surprise. And it was a surprise to me this morning, that's for sure. So, yours truly, me, was retweeted by none other than Richard Grinnell this morning. Blah! Badass! Let me tell you why that's badass. If you don't know who Rich Grinnell is, just a few months ago, from like February to May, he was the head of the DTI, the Director of National Intelligence. So he was literally the top position in the country, the highest position you could hold as an intelligence professional in this nation. So that is just badass, getting a retweet from Grinnell. And when he was acting DTI, under his watch, basically a bunch of D-class got started. FISA-gate, Obama-gate documents, if you want to call it that, started rolling out to the public. So that garnered Grinnell a lot of respect from people like me and others out there who saw what he was doing. So that's why this is just extra cool, extra exciting for me. I saw that Grinnell was tweeting about how much of a shit show it is in Washington and Oregon, so I responded to his tweet and said, well, in Western Washington, there's a huge silent majority of Trump supporters who are just sick of everything that's happening in Seattle and in this state. Can confirm, I'm here in Western Washington. I've seen him and met him. And then Grinnell retweets my tweet and responds to it. He says he hears the same thing from his friends in Washington here. So that's just badass, and the reason why it's extra badass is because just a few days ago, Grinnell retweeted another Q supporting account on Twitter. This account goes by the name of Julian's Rum. If you're familiar with Julian's Rum, love that account. He cracks me up. I love his no bullshit attitude because I can respect that. So a few days ago, Grinnell retweets Julian's Rum. Now he retweets me. So I don't know if this is just some coinky-dink, maybe, or if there is a knowledgeable action going on for him to retweet Q supporters out there. So who knows? Who knows if he knew or not, but nevertheless, badass. Made my morning. Now let's get into talking Shipp and what Shipp is saying this morning about QAnon. So Shipp, he has been exposing different aspects of the shadow government for quite a few years now. More recently, he was in the viral Out of Shadows documentary, which I'm sure you very well watched. And he did a great interview in that great documentary. But this morning, he started tweeting some really weird things about QAnon. Now, in the past, Kevin Shipp really hasn't been, or at least from what I've noticed, pro-Q or anti-Q. He's just been seemingly kind of lukewarm to the subject. But now this morning, he seems to be going on an anti-Q tirade. Let me show you. So this is what his Twitter timeline looks like. And as you can see, he put out a string of tweets, all with the same graphic. You can see that Q graphic was uploaded with every single one. And I'm going to show you the first couple here so you can get the general idea of what he's saying. First tweet, he said, "A message to the Q movement. The movement is comprised of millions of people who are good, patriotic Americans around the world. Anons are critical in stopping the attempted takeover of our government and culture." Wow, okay. Sounds real supportive. He got some good engagement on that one. 2,500 likes, 1,000 retweets. Okay, all right. Then the tweets get a little weirder. This next one says, "The, quote, Great Awakening is real and inspiring to many. I fully support it," Shipp says. "QAnons must continue their exposés and strengthen the movement. I must caution them of this, though. Q, which started as a legitimate insider, has been taken over on 8kun. It is now a psyop." So that's what Shipp is claiming. He's claiming it's started as a legit insider, but now it's been taken over and it's a psyop. Well, the reason why this confuses me is for a couple of reasons. Number one, he doesn't describe his evidence or his sauce, as we say, or how he came to know this. That's what I'm wondering. How did he know this? He does not explain why we should take him as an authority on this particular piece of information. He just goes and says it and then expects us to view him as the authority on it. I need some sauce to believe that, bro. So he's just going and saying that. And then he calls QAnon a psyop, insinuating that because it is now a psyop, as he says, that apparently it's been compromised and taken over, blah, blah, blah. But by technical definition, and Kevin Shipp should know this with his intelligence community experience, by technical definition, Q, yes, is a psyop, and it's been a psyop, a psychological operation, since the beginning, right? It's a psychological operation. Doesn't mean it's a good or a bad thing. A psyop is just a psyop. In my opinion, Q is a benevolent psychological operation. It's a good psyop, if you want to think of it that way. The motives behind the people doing it seem clear as day to me to be very good ones. That's opposed to, say, a malicious or an insidious psyop. We've seen plenty of those from the friggin' cabal. So he's kind of throwing out some word salad here, I'll be honest. Some stuff that doesn't really make sense, at least to me. And then in this next tweet, and you can see his engagement on these tweets is just dropping. Maybe people started sniffing out the narratives he was putting out in these. But this last one we'll cover. There's more, but this is the last one we'll cover. He says, "A person, in my view, or a group of people took over 8kun, and Q is intentionally publishing vague, inaccurate messages, giving followers what they want to hear. It is not an insider. QAnons must use critical thinking when analyzing Q's posts. Duh. Q is not an all-knowing entity. Also, duh." And when Shipp says Q is intentionally publishing vague, inaccurate messages, yeah, they have done that in the past, pushed inaccurate messages. But there was a reason behind that, and it was all for some sort of strategy, as we've seen many times. So Kevin Shipp now saying Q is not an insider. Again, how would he know these things? Why would he know these things? And he needs to explain why we should believe him, quite honestly, because I don't know. This is just really odd how this narrative started this morning. Anyway, I mean, I've liked Kevin Shipp's past work, but let's move on to talking Dwight Howard. So, Dwight Howard, yes, the NBA star. Quite honestly, I didn't know he was even in the NBA anymore, but he is, and he's coming under fire from the mainstream media, or at least that's what the mainstream media is saying. And whenever they say somebody is coming under fire, that's because, well, the mainstream media is trying damn hard to smear that person. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with Dwight Howard right now. So on his Instagram, which Dwight Howard has like 2.5 million followers, I think. On his IG, he has made some really incredible statements. He said he does not believe in vaccines. He's also said that he is anti-mask. He doesn't believe in the masks as well. He said that, I think, on a live Instagram video. Awesome. I totally support those two things. He's already my new favorite sports star after saying that. But get this, that's not all. He actually follows QAnon accounts on his Instagram. You can go to his Instagram, go to the following list. You can go check it right now. He follows at least 3 Q supporting accounts. One of them is Q the Wake Up. Good buddy of mine runs that account. Dwight Howard follows that. There's 2 other ones too, at least, from what I've seen personally. And this story, the fact that Dwight Howard actually follows QAnon accounts on Instagram, this was actually the top trending story of Reddit's NBA subreddit just a day or 2 back. So they finally caught wind that Dwight Howard was saying these things and following these accounts. And now the mainstream media caught wind of it. I think I tweeted it like 4 or 5 days ago. But now the media is blowing him up for this. And the reason why I really like Dwight Howard right now is because he has not caved. He has not apologized. He hasn't walked back anything. So as long as he continues to hold his ground, I'm all for you, man. I'm all for you. And just imagine, the first few pop culture stars, I'm talking sports, I'm talking music, I'm talking any sort of industry like that, just pop culture, the first few stars to come out and openly start talking about these conspiracy theories, right? And don't back down, they're going to make history. And they're going to make history in a good way. In a very good way. They're going to get so many fans. Like, imagine how many millions of people are just going to be like, holy crap, you're awesome, super duper celebrity person. You must be someone that didn't go to Epstein's Island, right? So I can't wait for that to happen. Okay, so now let's get into this story that shocked a lot of people. It was crazy. It's still crazy, still going on. But 2 days ago, you've probably heard this part. Gunman shows up at a judge's house in New Jersey, a judge by the name of Judge Esther Salas. And he was impersonating a FedEx driver. The judge's son opens the door, 20-year-old son. Tragically, the son gets shot, passes away. The husband, who was right behind the son in the hallway, also gets shot. I believe he was in critical condition. Nothing happens to the judge because she was down in the basement. She didn't answer the door. But then the FedEx driver, or the impersonator, I should say, takes off. And then yesterday, here's the kicker. They say that this particular assassinator, the person who was the gunman, committed suicide. All right. Now, here's the kicker to the kicker. Just 4 days ago, this judge, Judge Esther Salas, was assigned a case that was linked to Jeffrey freaking Epstein, of all people. Wow. This article explains it right here. Judge Salas had recently been assigned to a civil financial fraud case tied to Jeffrey Epstein. It was brought by Deutsche Bank investors who claimed the bank made false and misleading statements about its anti-money laundering policies and failed to monitor high-risk customers, including convicted sex offender billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Why do so many people linked or connected to Jeffrey Epstein somehow, or even Jeffrey frickin' Epstein himself, commit suicide? Is it too soon to say that this judge's gunman probably did not kill himself? Maybe he did. If he did kill himself, in my opinion, he was probably mind-controlled to do it. You think MKUltra stopped? It didn't stop. It went deeper, darker, blacker, got crazier. Or maybe this hitman didn't kill himself and the hitman had a hitman. That's another possibility. Maybe the hitman had a hitman, because this does not look like an amateur job, folks. If this individual is dressing up, impersonating a FedEx driver, and then going to the home, I mean, there was a lot of premeditation behind this. And then, door gets open, he starts firing, runs, commits suicide the very next day. That is, of course, the official story we're hearing. I got to start, marking this on the whiteboard. The OS. That's the OS we're hearing, the official story. And in the official story that the mainstream media is putting out, they're saying that it was an old attorney guy who just like had a grudge with the judge. That's the OS, that's the official story, but I'm not buying that, because if he was going after the judge, why did he go after the son right when they opened the door? Why didn't he target his target better than that, essentially? You know, it seems like a total mess. It seems honestly like this guy was mind controlled to go carry out that objective, and the mind control just like totally failed, and he missed his target, and they, I don't know, suicided him or made him kill himself. But this just seems like a professional job totally. When you have Deutsche Bank's name involved in this too, completely corrupt organization, pray for that judge. Pray for the family. Okay, let's move on to Ghislaine Maxwell. Since we're on that subject of Epstein, let's hop over to Ghislaine. Out of the Daily Mail today. So the Daily Mail, just a word on them. Really interesting website, thedailymail.com, because for a couple of years now, going through the Epstein saga, going through COVID, going through now Ghislaine Maxwell, they've been getting some really interesting exclusives. So this leads me to believe that I think the Daily Mail has some sort of source, maybe even in America, could be in another country, some sort of back channel where they're getting legit inside details from legit sources, like truth ones, not mainstream propaganda. So I take the Daily Mail when they have these sorts of exclusives. I take them a little more seriously than I normally do the mainstream media. But this is what the article says about Ghislaine. So check this out. This is crazy. Ghislaine Maxwell paid, as this alleges, $25,000 to fake news purveyor Jacob Wohl to, quote, smear Epstein victims and to get prosecutor Jeffrey Berman fired in attempt to stall sex trafficking investigation against GMAX. They're saying GMAX paid Jacob Wohl 25 grand to smear people that were accusing Epstein and Maxwell. Holy crap. First of all, the reason why, holy crap, do you know who Jacob Wohl is? He is a pretty prolific, I guess we could say, alternative media conservative pundit. You know, I track a lot of the different groups among the alternative media and conspiracy communities and all that, you know, looking for information, seeing what's going on, etc. Jacob Wohl is one of the folks in, you know, the alternative media groups that I've sort of had a little bit of an eye on, and he just sets off all sorts of red flags with the things he says and does, and now this. And this particular claim that the Daily Mail is printing, it's not like they're printing this from an anonymous source like the Washington Post or the New York Times would. They're actually getting this. Their source is a Maryland model and paralegal, one of the women they say that Jacob Wohl and his business partner was trying to use for their smear plots. So we actually have a name, an individual with this claim. So I think it might be legit. But Jacob Wohl and business partners of his taking money from Ghislaine Maxwell? Like what? And this actually, part of me is really surprised, but part of me is not really surprised at all, because I remember when Jacob Wohl had a Twitter, I don't think he has a Twitter account anymore, but when he had one, it clearly said Zionist in the bio of his profile. Like he is a self-proclaimed Zionist. I'm not saying that's automatically bad, but something to be aware of, right? And especially when you're trying to connect Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, like we know, had Mossad connections. So now we have Jacob Wohl, a dude who is claimed to be a Zionist in his profile, and it's like, oh, then we have the pattern emerging, you see? So does Jacob Wohl have Mossad connections? I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. Because if we think about InfoWars, all the people connected to InfoWars, Alex Jones, who else? Oh, geez. A lot of folks, right? You know, Jacob Wohl and Laura Loomer. All those, you wonder how many of them have Mossad connections. So, really weird. Be careful who you follow, folks, especially in that conspiracy community, in the alternative, conservative media world. Because we know, a lot of people know that the mainstream media is just fake. It's obviously fake sometimes too. But the real snakes, they're those controlled oppos in the truth-telling, conspiracy, alternative media world. They'll reel you in and then bait and switch you real hard. Okay, now moving on into this story, more Chinese spies today it was announced by the Department of Justice that 2 Chinese hackers were indicted for hacking a crap ton of companies for a lot of years, and more recently they were trying to hack into companies and various research groups for coronavirus information. Crazy enough, but anyway, 2 Chinese spies indicted today by the DOJ. Now this is a perfect example of, yet another example of more Chinese spies getting outed in this country. How many over the last few years? Like, it's crazy. In the aerospace sector, bioengineering sector, pharmaceutical industry, tech, like all across it. It's crazy. And then you look at the mainstream media. What's the country that they've been shouting from the rooftops, claiming has been the danger for years? Russia, right? Russia, 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 Russia. It's been nonstop Russia. Look here, not there. Perfect. They're blaming Russia as doing the election hacking and the cyber warfare and all this stuff, but really it's been China. And as we head towards the election, I don't doubt that we're going to get more stories like this. Chinese nationals indicted, arrested for different criminal acts, but also the mainstream media trying to beat that Russia, distract us with the Russia, Russia, Russia. Meanwhile, China's the one we want to look at. And when I say China, okay, I don't mean all of China's bad. I don't mean all Chinese people are bad. What I'm saying is a deep state, a shadow government operates transnationally. So we have a deep state here in America, we have a deep state in China. And these networks of criminal networks, really, they work together. So that's what needs to be exposed, corruption in every country. And no doubt we have corrupt actors in China working with corrupt actors in America to combat the good actors, per se. But that's that. Moving on into conspiracy theorists in government. So as is the mainstream media's modus operandi, anytime they even catch wind of somebody who they want to discredit, they want to attack, and this somebody makes any sort of insinuation or hint toward a conspiracy theory, the mainstream media lights them up. We've seen them do it lately with people seeking government office, people running for Congress who promote Q. Mainstream media, oh, if you're running for office and you support Q, you'll get your own series of hit pieces from different media outlets. Now they're targeting people who could potentially be in the Trump administration. So first one here, we have a HUD official who they're saying spread Clinton satanic conspiracy theories, and the Trump administration is tapping him to potentially lead the Office of Personnel Management. So, the mainstream media, yeah, they could make this seem bad, but to me, I'm like, oh, great, he's a conspiracy theorist? Fantastic. Get him in office, Donald Trump. John Gibbs, senior official at HUD, has been nominated to become the next director of the Office of Personnel Management. And back in 2016, he retweeted the hashtag spirit cooking. I don't think that's bad. Whatever. And then we got CNN here. Another person too. The White House is pushing a conspiracy theorist fired from the National Security Council for a top Pentagon position. Boom, there he is right there. Rich Higgins is his name. He's a former aide who says he was fired from the National Security Council in 2017 for sending a conspiratorial memo, is currently being considered to serve as Chief of Staff to retired Brigadier General Anthony Tata, the White House's nominee for the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy at the Pentagon. Oh no! All these conspiracy theorists are getting into government. Sounds great to me. Let's move on. Let's move on into our last story here, talking about the coronavirus, really, and potential treatments or things that could and should be treatments for the coronavirus. We're going to talk hydroxychloroquine and Cl02, or chlorine dioxide. Now, one quick note before we get into these stories. This happens over and over and over again when I talk about chlorine dioxide, is that people, I guess, I don't know, maybe they read too fast or they don't even read at all, they just skim things. But when I talk about chlorine dioxide, for some reason people think that I'm talking about hydroxychloroquine, when these are two very different compounds, completely separate things. And that just needs to be known. Okay, so we're talking about two totally separate things when we're using these different words. Maybe it's the chloro word or something, but people just totally don't even read what I'm typing sometimes. And these are both should and could be treatments for COVID, but they're not. Well, HCQ is some places, but it should be more. And Cl02, most definitely not. If you think hydroxychloroquine has been attacked by Big Pharma and the fake news media, research this stuff a little bit. But, okay, first article on HCQ. Brazil's President Bolsonaro holds up his bottle of hydroxychloroquine pills to a cheering crowd and takes off his mask as supporters turn out to greet him despite his COVID infection. Ha! Good balls that takes Bolsonaro. He just takes off his mask, holds up his hydroxychloroquine pills, shows everybody. So that's, I mean, awesome stuff right there. Expose Big Pharma, expose the fake news media. We know how much they've tried to spin the true story on hydroxychloroquine over the last few months. All they want to do is sell either their expensive pills that cost $1,000 each or their vaccines that they want to pump out 100 million doses of. Nope, you find something like hydroxychloroquine that's cheap and generic and we can't have that treating coronavirus. No, says corrupt Big Pharma. And now let's move on into chlorine dioxide. So while hydroxychloroquine you can at least get published in the mainstream media, and they might put some truth about it out there, and of course a lot of spin, but the thing about hydroxychloroquine is it's still a pharmaceutical. So that's why Trump and Q team and the white hats, I think that's why they strategically had to go with something like HCQ, is because it's still a pharmaceutical, so that makes the propagandists have a little bit tougher of a time trying to spin the story against it. Chlorine dioxide, it's not a pharmaceutical. You can literally make it on your own, and it's even cheaper than hydroxychloroquine, believe it or not. This costs pennies on the dollar. I know hydroxychloroquine is cheap to produce, but this stuff's even cheaper. Unfortunately, Big Pharma is so corrupt that in the Western media, like this article here from the New York Post that came out yesterday, really it came out from the Associated Press as a newswire, so you really know that they're trying to get their talking points out there to all the platforms, all the media outlets. Look at this. Bolivia faces a surge of fake toxic coronavirus drugs. And then in the headline photo here, a man shows bottles of chlorine dioxide he purchased at a pharmacy in Bolivia. So crazy, crazy stuff where, I said this in my video yesterday, if you watched it, or last video a couple of days ago, chlorine dioxide has been approved by the Bolivian government. Their Senate approved it to be a treatment for COVID. Holy crap, Bolivia! They're taking this stuff seriously. That's why the mainstream media has to attack Bolivia right here. In Ecuador, okay? In Ecuador, a third of the Catholic priests sent a letter to the Ecuadorian government calling for them to at least study, if not start treating people of COVID with chlorine dioxide. So how incredible is that? In countries around the world, they're starting to take this stuff seriously. Meanwhile, in America, our media is printing hit pieces on it. Big Pharma is still putting out fake science about it. And people who promote it too much get arrested. That's why I don't sell this stuff. That is, I wish I could, quite honestly. I would love to. And I would love to talk about it a lot more on the internet. But I purposefully do not sell this stuff because I don't want to open myself up to the potential negative side of things that this could bring me from a Big Pharma and corrupt FDA, really. So, yeah, that's that. Spanish-speaking countries, Latin America, they're starting to take this stuff real seriously. And especially in those poorer countries, how great, where they can have something incredibly cheap that, yes, kills viruses and pathogens and things like that. So, that's my 2 cents on all that, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Much appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow with some good stories for y'all. And remember, you can subscribe on Patreon. I get so censored and demonetized, it might blow your mind. So I've got to get creative with how I support myself. I still have a Patreon account. You can subscribe there. I do exclusive live chats a few times a month, and I also give away products, things like that on there. So you get access to all that on Patreon. And also you can check out my health and fitness brand, Conscious Strength. You can support me by making a purchase on that website of one of my supplement products. And I also send you a couple stickers, maybe a wristband, and a badass product that can help you out too. So you help me, I help you in that instance, and then you can support the journalism work that I do. So check out those. Also subscribe to the newsletter on jordansather.com. And that's it, everybody.